Welcome everyone to our webinar, Unleashing the Power of Data in AI in Customer Experience Management. My name is Jen Stone. I am the Senior AVP for Marketing here at EXL, and I'll be your moderator for today. So for those of you who don't know EXL, we are a leading data analytics and digital operations and solution partner for businesses in industries such as insurance, banking, healthcare, and retail. We currently work with 9 of the top 10 leading US industry insurance companies, 9 of the top 20 global banks, and 6 of the top 10 US healthcare payers. So we really bring a unique combination of data, AI, and domain expertise to help our clients turn data into insights, streamline operations, improve customer experience to drive sustainable growth. But really, it's our people who truly set us apart. So we employ one of the largest data science teams in the industry, including more than 1,500 team members dedicated to our Gen AI practice. And we have a proven track record of 25 years delivering business services and running complex operations for some of the world's largest brands. So as you can see, data and AI is really at the core of everything we do, which is why we commissioned a study conducted by Everest Group to really unlock the secrets to thriving in today's competitive landscape by leveraging the power of customer experience. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes sharing the results of the survey, including a panel discussion around actionable strategies for leveraging CX to drive business success. If you have any questions at any point, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. I am pleased to be joined today by Shashank Verma, our Global Head of CX Transformation here at EXL, and Shirley and Aishwarya from the Everest Group. So I'll pass it over to the Everest team to introduce themselves and get started with their findings.
Thanks, Jen. My name is Shirley Hung. I'm a partner within our customer experience management services practice. I am normally based out of Dallas, but today I'm dialing in temporarily from London. So really glad to be part of this discussion. Aishwarya, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. Thanks, Shirley. Hi, everyone. I'm Aishwarya. I'm a practice director with the firm, also part of the CXM practice that Shirley's with. And I also worked on the study that we're going to discuss today along with Shirley. So let's get started.
Great. So just as a introduction of Everest Group, in case you have not heard of us, we are a research firm that focuses on services and technologies. We work with the largest brands that are out there, and we work with stakeholders across a lot of different categories. So the buyers of services and technologies, as well as the providers of services and technologies. And also what we call influencing firms. So consulting firms, investors, industry associations, all with an intent of progressing maturity in these spaces. So we cover a huge, broad range of different topics. And we work with our clients, both member clients who subscribe to our research, as well as clients that might want to engage with us on specific problem statements in the form of projects. So as Jen was mentioning and Aishwarya was mentioning, we conducted a study recently that focuses on digital customer experience management and specifically the role that data and analytics plays within delivering quality, effective, impactful customer experience. What we wanted to do was share a couple of highlights from our research to kind of kick off the discussion, the panel discussion that we're going to have a little bit later. And as Jen said, as we're going through this, if any questions or comments come to mind, please do feel free to use the chat function. So to kind of kick off, when we're going into 2024, we did ask a bunch of firms what their feelings are about 2024? Where do they think is going to be the biggest challenges? Where do they think there's going to be the biggest focus and priorities? What are some of the factors that will impact their business? So what we're showing here is overwhelmingly, people are concerned about the negative influence that the global macroeconomic environment as well as geopolitical environment might pose for their business. Over half, I think, of the world's population has major elections this year. And obviously that has a really big impact on everything relating to their economies, the global economy, as well as regulatory and compliance type of functions and so forth. And so understandably, companies are concerned by what the results of the elections will bring in 2024. But on the other hand, they are feeling pretty positive sentiment when it comes to how consumers are behaving and what their intentions might be, and the company's ability to meet those expectations. And a large part of that is due to all the hype, all the conversation around generative AI. As one of those new technologies that's really disrupting the space and has huge implications when it comes to customer experience management, actually, specifically. And so there's a great deal of excitement and optimism when it comes to the impact of technology and also consumer behavior on businesses. So speaking of business priorities, the overwhelming theme that we're hearing is companies want to do more with less. So they're focused, because of that uncertainty that I was talking about before, they're focused on cost optimization, they're focused on obviously growing their business, and they're also wanting to improve customer experience in order to meet those objectives. And obviously, technology plays a very, very huge role in being able to meet those priorities. If we take a look at customer experience management, there's some digital levers that we list here, and they compose anywhere from automation or RPA, chatbot, self-service, cloud, agent assist solutions. But if we look at data and analytics that's shown here on DNA, that is among and probably tops the digital levers that we've shown here in terms of the importance that our survey respondents had when they thought about how data and analytics can improve customer experience. And so it's no wonder that actually most of those respondents, 94% of them, are already well on their journey to deploy, scale up, or even already be at steady state when it comes to implementing DNA in their CXM environments. They also, not only is data and analytics actually very powerful in its own right, when you actually combine data and analytics with other digital levers, such as automation and self-service, cloud, there's actually an exponential impact there as well. So it not only has a foundational relevance, but it also enables the rest of the digital levers to function more efficiently and more effectively too. So at this point, I'm just going to hand it over to Aishwarya to take us through some of the deep dive findings from the survey.
Thanks, Shirley. If I talk about advanced analytics solutions that enterprises are undertaking to improve customer experience, some of them that top the list are workforce optimization, customer analytics, and voice of customer analytics. This is divided into two different kinds of analytics. When we talk about CX analytics, there are two of them, mainly operational and business analytics. While operational analytics more refer to processing, collection, and storing customer data and operationalizing that, business analytics actually refers to a lot of business decision making through the actionable insights that are generated from this data set. So, for example, within CX operational analytics, you will see that workforce optimization and desktop analytics top the table when it comes to number of respondents or percentage of respondents rather in our study that are in deploying, scaling up or steady state stages already. Whereas if you see in CX business analytics, VOCA, which is voice of customer, as well as customer analytics, which is about understanding previous customer interaction, purchase history, and customer preferences to understand the entire customer persona and eventually, make decisions based on that customer preference. So that is where business analytics comes into the picture. And as you can see, more than 89, almost 90% of respondents and above 80% of respondents are already deploying these technologies very heavily. If I talk about other advanced analytic solutions that enterprises are deploying, some of them are data catalog and self-service solutions, agent assist solutions, and even domain-specific data analytics use cases. And conversational generative AI as well, of course. And I'm sure that if I ask the same question now, the answer would definitely be the conversational generative AI in the top three. What we're seeing, however, an interesting trend is that even enterprises that are very mature and advanced in their digital transformation journeys have still not adopted these advanced analytic solutions to a large extent. For example, in our study, we found that about 30% of respondents have employed predictive or reactive analytics that actually predict that customer churn and customer contact and then react accordingly, whereas about 40% had reported incorporating proactive or prescriptive analytics in which they would preempt that a customer would reach out to them, and instead of the customer reaching out, they would proactively give out push notifications or proactively reach out to the customer so that customer experience is improved. But in our study, we saw that less than 15% are employing cognitive analytics, which is the highest form of, or the most superior form of analytics, which actually employs a lot of AI and MLs, deploying a lot of AI and ML solutions on unstructured data to come up with very pointed insights at each customer level, so that you can have the most superior customer experience at a very personalized and hyper personalized level, actually. So this was a finding that we had in our survey. Moving to the next one, we saw that many enterprises are actually happy with their service provider performance when it comes to level of achieving business objectives through DNA, as well as the importance of those objectives in the first place. So level of expectation as well as level of achievement of those objectives. It has been largely met in reducing operational costs for the enterprises, or driving efficiency improvements, or even laying foundational capabilities for digital transformation. But where DNA and AI initiatives have not shown, or there's a certain gap between the level of expectation and achievement of business objectives, is in growing revenues, as well as in improving CX metrics such as CSAT, such as NPS, such as FCR, or maybe sales revenue growth, and others. So this is where CX, DNA, and AI initiatives can do better according to enterprises in achievement of their business objectives, whereas all other objectives have largely been met. And this is because we see that there's a lot of hesitation when it comes to CX, DNA, and AI solutions, which I'll come to talk about in the next slide as well. And that's because of certain regulatory compliance issues, data privacy issues, and therefore there's a lack of standardized data management and reporting, because of which some of these objectives have still not been met, because enterprises are not willing to deploy them to that extent in their organization as of yet. Coming to the next slide, where I talk about operating structures of CX, DNA, and AI. Of course, we see that majority are still in-house. About 60 to 70% of enterprises have said that They are maintaining their CX, DNA, and AI initiatives in-house. But the interesting trend here to note is that almost 30% have said that they're going to increase outsourcing of their CX, DNA, and AI initiatives. And we've understood that this is mostly because of process and domain expertise that service providers bring to the table, which, of course, coupled with their industry best practices, their operational excellence when it comes to these initiatives and their solutions, and their team of skilled individuals that they bring to the table is something that really uh, propels enterprises towards more outsourcing, and specifically for CX, DNA, and AI initiatives. Lastly, some of the challenges and best practices relating to CX, DNA, and AI initiatives that enterprises are currently facing. When it comes to challenges, the biggest one is, of course, lack of suitable skills within the organization, a lack of CX, DNA skills, AI skills, or having that entire data integration. Because mostly we see that organizations are struggling with legacy systems, outdated systems, and they're also struggling with working in different silos, and they're unable to integrate all of their data at an enterprise level. So that is those are some of the challenges, and poor data quality, lack of data structuring, integration challenges, data security concerns that I just mentioned are some of the other challenges. And when it comes to best practices, we'll deep dive into this in the panel discussion, but securing the right leadership, buy-in, executive support, having the right change management policies in place so that there is less resistance and to change, and nurturing the workforce's DNA capability so that the employees feel empowered to actually take on this new technology and integrate it into their daily work lives is something that's really important to propel and actually realize the success of the CX, DNA, and AI initiatives for any enterprise. All right. With that, I think we're at the end of our presentation. Jen, back to you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your findings. So as we move into the Q&A session, just a reminder, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I've seen a couple come through, but as we go, we'll answer that at the end of the webinar. So I'd like to kind of start and kick things off. I'd like to bring in Shashank from EXL into the discussion. So Shashank, in the context of harnessing the full potential of AI and customer experience, can you maybe elaborate how you are expecting AI to disrupt CXM by 2025?
Thanks, Jen. Absolutely. And Shirley, Aishwarya, thank you so much for taking us through a very insightful study. Gives us a lot to think about, not just for me, but I'm sure for all the audience as well. So Jen, I would actually carry on from where Aishwarya actually finished, right? So the top things, especially given where Gen AI is coming in and disrupting the CX landscape, right? I think three things are going to happen more and more, within 2024 and 2025. One, clearly, we need to learn from data, right? I mean, you can have the best in class technology, you can have, all your best AI solutions, but if you don't have the underlying data and you're not learning and deriving actionable insights from your data, you'll not drive significant value from your investment. So clearly, what I see is a lot of enterprises are focusing on, putting their data in order, right, in a usable, consumable format. And clearly, generative AI makes that a little easier than traditional AI. So that's going to be a key area of focus. Uh, the other two big things that I see happening is, autonomous agents. There is a lot of traction, a lot of experimentation, I would say today, when it comes to autonomous agents to enable straight through processing, where human agents are not needed to complete all those tasks. So, with the advancement in technologies, a lot of effort is going to happen there, right? So, that's definitely big on the cards. We will see a lot of enterprises releasing that to the market. The other is, which we already see happening in a really big way, is all those agent assists and the co-pilots, right? So that's already taken off, right? Almost all enterprises that we talk to are either in the process of deploying it or have already deployed it. So those are the two areas where we see a lot of big change happening. And with generative AI, what what's happening is it's changing the entire landscape. So what was being done use case by use case using generative AI, you can apply it to the entire contact center footprint. So it's accelerating time to value for the customers and for the business.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that. Shirley, do you foresee any trends in the next 2 to 3 years regarding the integration of data and analytics and CX strategies, particularly within this rise of generative AI?
Yeah, I definitely see data and analytics being a foundational and fundamental component of any CX strategy. You know, we've seen it earlier in our study results that already 94% of our survey respondents are well on their way in implementing data and analytics for customer experience. And it'll be very soon that this will become 100%, right? You know, those organizations that really fail to do this or they fall behind in this space will rapidly become irrelevant. And when you factor in generative AI, this trend will accelerate even further because we all know that data, as Shashank was talking about, is a requirement for any AI use case. And with generative AI, we now have the means in which to run analysis in much more intuitive ways.
Yeah, Shaurya, building on that, how do you see these generative AI applications impacting the overall efficiency and effectiveness of customer experience management? If you could kind of expand on some of the study and any trends or best practices you're seeing in your research.
Sure, Jen. So this is actually a very timely question because we're doing a lot of research around generative AI, and some of the efficiencies that we're starting to now actually see in 2024. 2023 was more of a pilot year and just providers, enterprises, everyone just trying out the new technology. We're seeing that in 24, they're actually resulting in some ROI or some efficiencies that have been gained. For example, we're seeing cost save about 15 to 25% cost savings. We're seeing 20 to 30% reduction in training time, agent training time. And we're also seeing 15 to 25% reduction in operational efficiencies. I mean, improvement in operational efficiencies and, operational efficiencies as well, sorry. What that means, but that also depends on where the organization's starting line is. So if the organization's already advanced in their digital journey, they might not experience that a big of an ROI or that big of an improvement in their efficiencies because they're already quite mature, versus some of the others who might be starting from a lower point, but they might see some very quick ROIs because of the low-hanging fruits that can be easily automated. Some of the use cases that Shashank was mentioning around agent assist solutions, agent training, post-call automation. We're also seeing a lot of use cases such as self-service, knowledge management, transcription. So we're seeing a lot of that actually being, now actually being deployed, going from pilot to production stage. And therefore, these are the use cases in which all of these efficiencies are being realized.
Yeah, with that, Shashank, we all have heard about the power of AI. So can you discuss maybe some high velocity use cases for AI and CX? And if you can cover a little bit around how EXL is driving measurable outcomes for our clients?
Sure. So, and I can talk all day about the kind of use cases, Jen, but I'll talk about three of those which are my favorites, right? One is clearly, a lot of people think generative AI is only going to derive, efficiency gains. And, we strongly challenge that. I think absolutely it'll drive efficiency gains. But if applied properly, it can lead to business growth and customer retention and upsell, cross-sell as well, right? So in driving revenue. And, that's one of my favorite of sales assist. So, what we're also seeing in the market, and we're actually driving a couple of pilots in different industries, is helping agents sell a lot better. And the way it typically works is, let's say if Shirley and Aishwarya are my best agents and best reps with the highest conversion rates, and I'm a mediocre agent struggling with my conversion, just the way Shirley and Aishwarya are able to navigate those conversations, are able to take on questions and exceptions, from the customers, I can now use generative AI to give me those real-time nudges, the next best actions, helping me navigate and learn from the success of Shirley and Aishwarya, to drive, our sales much better and improve my conversion rates. We're already doing a couple of pilots of this across different industries. We're already seeing up to 15 to 20% higher conversions, which we think is significant. It's only at a tip of the iceberg. So that's one of my favorite use cases. The other is, continuous improvement. Whenever we think about CX, it is really important how you're driving, continuous improvement. What typically most contact centers do are they audit from a quality standpoint 2% or less calls per agent per month, just because they don't have the capacity to do that. Right now, if I'm only manually auditing, 5 or 10 calls per agent per month, that's not sizable sample enough for me to give personalized coaching feedback to my agents. And what we're able to do is apply generative AI, where we are able to completely automate, all those quality scorecards. AI automatically does the scoring. Now, at an individual level, we are able to find what are Shirley's opportunities to improve versus Aishwarya's versus yours and mine, right? So we can have now personalized coaching and development needs identified, and we can drive a continuous improvement process in our contact centers, and that is huge because it can give a significant, upside as well. And the third clearly is the use of data, right? I mean, again, just even using data to understand why are your customers even reaching out. Trust me, right? We asked this question to many of the CIOs, CDOs. Half of them don't even know what are the top reasons why their customers are even reaching out. And using generative AI, the intent classification models to automatically identify the reasons why your customers are calling, is huge, rather than just depending on, the disposition codes that the agents are manually tracking or clocking on the CRMs or the IVR tagging those. That's not dependable data. So, I mean, these three are my favorite use cases when we think about generative AI in the CXM space.
Yeah, thank you. That is huge. Ashwarya, my next question is actually a question that has also been asked a couple of times already in the chat. So what do you see as kind of like the biggest challenges organizations face in implementing use cases? And if you could talk about some best practices they can adapt to overcome these challenges, that would be great.
Sure, Jen. I see mainly challenges in two buckets. The first bucket is data, and the second bucket is talent. So talking about data first, so as I was also talking about earlier, data, if you don't have the right kind of data, generative AI is built on data, and it's just going to give you inaccurate results if the data that it comes from is spurious, right? So if we talk about actually having proper data structuring, proper data platforms, enterprise data platforms. In our study, we also saw that almost 90% of respondents actually have enterprise data management platforms that they're using. And not just that, they're also using business intelligence and reporting as well, and along with regulatory and compliance solutions. That's really important, because if that is not there as a bedrock, as Shirley was talking about, then nothing, AI or automation, nothing can help really, because that is where it all really starts from. So that is one thing, and that is where many enterprises struggle with, because if they want to start with Gen AI, they first have to get their data sorted. So that is the first challenge, or one of the most pervasive challenges that I've seen. The next one is talent, and when I say talent, it means doesn't mean that there is lack of talent within the organization, but there might be a lack of a central team that is driving the generative AI agenda within the organization, really kind of pushing for that to be on top of the executive leadership's to-do list. And the other thing is lack of a central team. So lack of a central team, and also lack of internal resources that can actually use generative AI to integrate all of the organization's different data silos. So those are the challenges in the talent bucket. And if I talk about some of the best practices, what we have seen in the what we have seen in our market interactions is the biggest one is having a technology roadmap or a generative AI roadmap, specifically when it comes to CXM, in place. Because without that, it's really going to be just one pilot after the other, which is not really going to result in a lot of ROI. It might result in some ROI, but it won't really be a long-term strategy. So having the right Gen AI roadmap in place, maybe partnering with a strategic partner who can help consult and guide on the best practices that work for you and your organization, as well as the technology that you've already kind of have. So you don't have to go and invest in new partners or new technologies. They can probably help you work with what you have already. So that is really important, to working with the right strategic partner. But whether you outsource or work with a partner or not, what is really important is understanding whether you want to go with an SLM or an LLM, having the right kind of resources in place. When I say resources, it's not just cost, but having a team of talent that understands AI and can help drive that within the organization, having the right leadership and executive support, as mentioned, and most importantly, having the right kind of change management policies in place, because when it comes to any new technology, employees are not really quick to take it up, and it having the right kind of push for employees to have generative AI training, to have generative AI adoption. That is really important, to have the right kind of policies in place. So these are some of the best practices.
Thank you. Yeah, Shashank, with that, what are some critical parameters for successful Gen AI deployment, especially in CXM?
Sure. I mean, and that's very, very interesting question, Jen. So, and you asked what are some of the things we're going to see next year, right? So definitely a lot of organizations are going to experiment, right? And they are experimenting. In fact, I was reading this article where McDonald's, I read yesterday, is going to pull out its AI order taking system, the drive-in order taking system, because there were a lot of backlash and a lot of jokes and TikTok videos that came, around that. So we'll see definitely a lot of organizations trying and sometimes making mistakes and then correcting and, fixing those. And, we should absolutely learn from their mistakes as well. Some of the key things, other than what Aishwarya already spoke about, that I would add is, it's important when we talk to our customers or our clients, there are three most important things in making, these solutions successful. Clearly, having the right technology and the solution is important, but absolutely, having and understanding the domain where you're fine tuning it and tweaking it specific to the domain requirements and the underlying data. I mean, without these three pillars, we'll not be successful. A couple of mistakes that we're seeing, organizations make is, they undermine the importance of a customer journey redesign, right? We understand while they're on the transformation journey, they currently follow some manual processes, right? When you look at transformation, it is not just automating the as-is processes, right? I mean, there's an opportunity to do a complete customer journey redesign. Don't automate a broken process, streamline it, and then automate and transform it. I mean, I think that's important. So that's the first guidance I would give, to our audience. The second is clearly have your right data set in place, right? With generative AI and AI, if you have, for example, right? I mean, we are using call transcripts to train on the use cases. If some of these are bad calls, obviously AI is going to learn incorrect things. So it's really, really important that, when we are training and fine tuning some of these AI and Gen AI models, we are using the right and clean data sets. So definitely make the time and invest on fixing your data estate and readiness from that perspective. Integration with your existing ecosystem is really important. Think about simplification and how you're integrating and leveraging your ecosystem. There's a lot of convergence. A lot of enterprises are actually consolidating a lot of those systems. So absolutely do that, right? Uh, Building responsible AI and not having biases is something we need to, as we go into generative AI, we need to have a very, very special and high focus on, doing that. And the last thing I would highlight is, uh, you know we are changing times. Humans are going to interact with AI solutions and systems. Experience design is a really important aspect. You can have the best technology, but if you've not designed it and crafted it nicely from an experience perspective, customers are not going to adopt that. So I think, some of these are going to be the key aspects that I would highlight, that organizations should bear in mind when they undertake this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, double clicking into your point, Shashank, around data. Shirley, how are you seeing organizations ensuring that their data estate and readiness for AI? And if you could kind of cover any specific steps or best practices they could follow?
Yeah, so data readiness is really about preparing your data for the use of AI or generative AI in specific. And as Shashank was saying, in order for the AI results to be effective, the data really must be understandable within the right context. The quality needs to be accurate, complete. It needs to be consistent. You need to get the data on a timely basis, and available, right? But one of the key areas that organizations are looking at is actually governance. So data governance to ensure that the data is kept secure, that it is ethically used, and that it is consistent across the firm. I think one of the questions that was being asked is that if data is so incredibly critical, then why is it so hard for many companies to address it, and why are they still struggling with it? And the answer is that it's hard. There's a lot of legacy systems that are out there. A lot of these systems aren't talking to each other. It's always hard for any organization to drum up the right level of investment that it takes. A lot of times, these kinds of readiness type of projects may not have a direct ROI sometimes associated with it, which makes it hard in terms of building a business case, but it is necessary for all the other more attractive business cases to be represented. And I think that's one of the nice things about this hype around generative AI is that it has elevated a lot of these discussions now to the executive levels. And therefore, we are seeing a greater willingness for investment in doing what it takes to drive forth that business value that comes from unlocking artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah, Shashank, is there anything you want to add to that, especially for organizations maybe looking to start their journey within AI?
So, and again, I was looking at some of the questions. I would love to get to those. So I'll keep this short. So Jen, I think, it has to be top driven. And I think both Shirley and Aishwarya were kind of highlighting that. Right? It has to be the organization's charter from the top, right? I mean, customer experience needs to be driven from there. What we always advise is don't look at, transformation in bits and pieces, because you'll end up transforming and automating things in silos. Rather, have an expert, or you can do it in-house, or you can get an expert to do that. What we call a CX maturity assessment, looking at your data maturity, looking at your, domain and technology maturity, and your entire CX ecosystem, the tech stack. Look at all of that holistically, build out a transformation plan and a roadmap, and then execute on that, starting with the low-hanging fruits. I think that's the right way to do it, to look at it holistically and then drive it, driving and keeping those business outcomes and the key metrics you're going to impact in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pass it out over to Shirley for last question, and then we can open it up to the questions from the audience. So Shirley, what are just some different operating models for implementing CX and AI services, and how do organizations choose the best one for their needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first off, there's not a one size fits all, right? Every organization has a different persona, I would say, or characteristics that will indicate what operating model works best for them. However, that being said, we are seeing common trends. So Aishwarya mentioned a little bit earlier that talent is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to data, when it comes to AI. And so it's incredibly hard to find people that have the right skill sets. And consequently, one of the ways that organizations are addressing that is actually consolidating or centralizing that talent into centers of excellence, so that hard to find skill set can be leveraged across the organizations, right? Mm-hmm. The other piece is whether or not to partner. So a lot of times that question comes to us and they say, well, should we build this capability in-house or should we partner for that? Again, this is very organizationally dependent. What I can say is that external parties, third parties, a lot of times they already have a lot of the foundational elements in place. So they have the talent, they have the experience, sometimes they even have existing investments in other technologies that is necessary to really kickstart a company's journey. So more and more, what we're finding is, to use an analogy of a runway of an airline, is that the runway for organizations to adapt to changes in the environment is getting shorter and shorter. And so any kind of form of strategy that will allow you to adapt faster, and in many cases, that means actually finding the right third-party partner to plug in whatever organizational gaps that you may have, that is becoming more and more a critical part of organizational strategies.
Yeah, very helpful. Okay, sounds great. I will open it up to the audience. So a question, we had a lot of questions around data, but Megan asked, how can you ensure your data is HIPAA compliant when using AI tools? And also, what AI tools are the most secure from a HIPAA perspective? Open it up to anyone. Go ahead.
I can take that, and
Okay.
Shirley and Aishwarya, feel free to chime in. So, almost all the technologies, whether it's with the hyperscalers or any of the leading platforms, Megan, most of those, and in fact, almost all of those platforms are HIPAA compliant. That's one of the prerequisites, especially if they're working with the healthcare institutions. However, right, you can have a tool or a technology that is HIPAA compliant, but as you're building your use cases, it's important that you embed all the HIPAA compliance aspects and parameters into the mix. So, whether it is 3 out of 5, authentication aspects or parameters that have got to be done, you will have to embed all of those. Just like you would do that with your human agents today, build it and embed that into your AI models, and you should be okay.
Anything else, Shirley, or that you want to add?
No, I mean, just to kind of echo what Shashank was saying, actually the tool selection itself is not going to be sufficient, right? You need to ensure that the system in which those tools are being operated is also compliant, that it's responsible, and that also includes the processes in which the tools are being leveraged in. And so that becomes incredibly important, is to look at the entire ecosystem and not just the tool itself.
Yeah. We've covered this a little bit, but we had some questions coming through around, like, everyone knows the importance of data for CX, but why are most companies still struggling with it?
So Jen, again, I can take that. I don't think it's out of choice. It's about, a lot of enterprises are dealing with a lot of legacy, especially, those large enterprises, right? And the data is not always organized. So that's, I think, part one. Second, as they've grown, they just keep adding a lot of disparate siloed systems into the mix. So the ecosystem, the tech landscape becomes more and more disparate, siloed, and a lot more complex, right? If you think about it, right? When we work with healthcare organizations or insurers, right, the customer's data is spread across, 7 or 8 different systems or platforms or screens, right? And that's what the agents even got to see. So, right, building and converging all of that data to understand your customer, that's what Aishwarya was talking about, right? So you're able to build a 360 profile of your customers. You understand their needs, you know who they are, what are the journeys they've undertaken. It becomes quite challenging, bringing all of that together. So largely, that is the biggest challenge that I see, right? And of course, there can be many more, but I think these are some of the key ones that I've seen.
Yep. And just to add to that, we had a recent study and we saw that more than 80% of digital transformation initiatives fail after a couple of years. And this has been echoed by many other studies as well. And I think what Shashank said is actually the number one reason why that happens. It's because of silos of data, and data integration is just not done. And if that is not done, then any digital transformation initiative is not going to bear fruit for very long.
Great.
Yeah,
I
you'd
will
be
ask
surprised
one.
that some of the basics are even missing, Jen, right? So, when we ask people, right, in their contact centers, they've got different channels, right? Some have got mobile apps, some have got portals, phone and chat. Even something as basic as, right, what is your containment? How many customers are using those channels? How many are able to complete those journeys within those channels, or versus picking up the phone eventually after being frustrated? And even joining those dots, right? I mean, you would imagine that this is something basic, but a lot of enterprises can't even achieve that meaningfully.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually, just to highlight some of the slides that we showed earlier in the webinar, they are actually, and you saw that half of them have employed at advanced analytics, but half of them haven't. And these are actually this is actually a study done on very advanced enterprises that are more than 2 years into their digital transformation journey. So if you can see that even they are halfway through deploying some of these technologies, you can just imagine where the rest of the market is. So we to Shashank's point, there is a lot more ground to cover in terms of getting the basics right first, and then of course having the other technologies in place for superior customer experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I will ask one more question and then we'll close out the webinar. So this question is from David, and he asked, how are you seeing companies prepare to adapt to these trends to stay ahead of the market? Over to you, Shwarya, maybe if you want to start.
Yeah, I think, sorry. Go ahead,
Go ahead. Oh, okay. So what I was going to maybe jump in with is that I think they are focusing on some of these fundamentals that we're talking about around cleaning up their data. That's one thing. Secondly, I do think that they are increasingly soliciting some external support to understand what others have done and whether or not they could adapt some of those strategies for themselves. More and more organizations realize they can't do this alone and that they can learn from others. And so they're engaging with the likes of research firms such as us, or, outsourcers such as EXL, or even their peers, right? Within peer networking channels to learn from each other's experiences and to ensure that they're staying ahead. I think there also needs to be a bit of a recognition on two fronts. One is the level of investment that is needed and being realistic about when the return is going to be seen. A lot of times pilots fail because the returns aren't immediately visible. Whereas we know that some of the benefits don't manifest until a little bit later. So the expectations are not actually aligned appropriately. And then the second thing as well that companies really need to ask themselves, and this is a personal kind of interest of mine, is actually what is your level of risk tolerance? And if we're faced with an environment where that runway is getting shorter and shorter, then companies really need to ask themselves, are they willing to take the necessary educated risks to be able to adapt faster than their competition? That within a increasingly complex regulatory and compliance environment is going to mean some very interesting things that might happen over the course of the next few years.
Thank you. All right. Well, that being said, if we haven't gotten to your question yet, we'll reach out to you directly. But we really appreciate, thank you, Everest. Thank you for our audience for being here today. And we hope you learned something interesting around customer experience and look forward to our next webinar. So thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everyone, for joining the session. Thanks, Shirley and Aishwarya. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.